If that's where you're at in this messy middle, I want you to hear this clearly. Your pain is legitimate. It is valid. Infidelity in all its forms is a violation of your sacred marriage vows. You're not crazy for feeling this deeply. You are responding to a broken covenant. And even more importantly, I want you to hear God cares about that pain because you matter to Him.
Welcome to the Betrayal Recovery Transformation Podcast, where we explore the journey from heartbreak to healing and transformation. Here are your hosts, Chris Rocha and Jen Howie.
On the podcast today, we have a lady named Jill Poole, and she is a trusted voice in the betrayal recovery space, and she brings both lived experience and professional insight to the conversation around emotional betrayal or emotional affairs. And Jen, that is a topic we haven't covered on the podcast yet, and yet it is so prevalent. Her presence at this year's APSATS conference deeply resonated with attendees and was widely praised for bringing language and clarity to a form of betrayal that is often misunderstood and even overlooked entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Jill has worked to bring definition and validation to often ambiguous experiences of emotional betrayal, helping betrayed partners better understand what they're feeling and why it impacts them so deeply. Today, Jill is joining us to explore what emotional betrayal is, how it affects women, and how healing begins through truth, clarity, and support.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to the podcast, Jill Poole. Thanks for being here.
Thank you both for having me.
Absolutely. We're so glad that you are here and that you reached out. Thank you. And it's been nice to get to know you a little bit over the last couple of weeks through emails and a couple phone calls and such. But before we dive into riddling you with questions, I would love to know a little about who you are, how you got into this line of work, just a little bit of your testimony, if you wouldn't mind.
Of course. So, like you said, my name is Jill Poole. I live just outside Chattanooga, Tennessee. My husband and I have 12 children.
Wow.
We've got quite a wide range from almost 9 to 28. And I'm going to be a grandma for the first time this year, so that's exciting.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Welcome to the club.
Yes. That's amazing.
Yeah. And my husband and I coach together at Hope in the Havoc. And I work supporting the betrayed wives, and my husband works supporting the men who did the betraying. And I love that we get to work together. We'll bounce the ideas off each other and see from the other side's perspective, gives us unique insight in the work we're doing. I'm also a contracted coach with Hope Redefined. I love working with them. That's an amazing ministry as well. And obviously, like most everyone else in this field, I'm here because of my story.
Mm-hmm.
As we started healing, as I started recovering, I just really felt a calling to support other women in this journey in a way that they can stay true to their faith and their vows and their values. I consider it a privilege to get to do this work.
Mm-hmm. 2 questions before we dive into the official questions. How long ago was D-Day for you? And what did you find most helpful in your healing journey so far?
So my first D-Day was 17 years ago.
Okay.
It took me a long time to actually get help. I think some of the most helpful things for me was finding those safe people that understood what I was going through and that could encourage me with truth. In my own story, I had a counselor, I had a coach, and I had a support group. And those 3, it felt like I had like the perfect setup to get what I needed to be able to heal and recover.
You had a trifecta. And yeah, 17 years ago, there weren't not a lot of resources. There weren't a lot of books. There really weren't podcasts. And there weren't even a lot of therapists and coaches that were trained in betrayal. It's a definitely different world now, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You're married 28 years and you have 12 children. Did I hear that right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yes. I love it. Boots on the street. I'm putting boots on the street. I love that. All right, Jill, let's get into this topic that, and when you called, you had shared that you had been a speaker at the AppSats convention this year, and that what you shared was so well received, and that people in our area of our line of work were hungry for what you had shared with them, and were even trying to figure out how to put this content into their own materials and into their own practices, which is like blows my mind. So thank you, God, and congratulations, Jill. And we are so excited to learn from you today. So our first question is, you've shared that during your own healing journey, it was difficult to find language and resources around emotional betrayal. But was it about your personal experience that led you to create these definitions for the rest of us?
I really struggled for those first 10 years just on my own. I had a misconception about what forgiveness and healing look like. And when I finally started trying to find help, I found resources about betrayal trauma that addressed both pornography and physical affairs. But I really struggled to find resources that spoke to the pain that I was experiencing in the emotional betrayal. That left me really questioning whether my pain even qualified. So when I first started attending groups, when I first started reaching out to coaches, I felt like my pain was less than. I really struggled to see where I fit into this. A lot of the resources that I did find on emotional affairs focused on symptoms without really ever getting to the heart of the issue. And this just added to my confusion and made it really difficult to get help. When I tried to explain my experience to others, my pain often felt unintentionally misunderstood, minimized, and dismissed. It's one of the reasons I believe it's so essential to define terms. Without this, I think it just adds to the gaslighting, to the minimization of the pain that both we feel ourselves and what others are feeling. So these definitions of emotional betrayal DNA come out of my own experience and conversations with other betrayal trauma professionals. And I just love that I get to support betrayed wives with resources to help them find their voices in this devastation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you just said the term emotional DNA.
Yeah. I was just going to say the same thing. So you've worked to move emotional affairs out of what you called ambiguous shadows by creating clear definitions through what you call emotional DNA. Can you walk us through the differences between what you say emotional displacement, emotional neglect, and an emotional affair?
Yes. Articulating what we mean by emotional betrayal and affairs can be really challenging. And it can feel so subjective, which again leads to that more gaslighting and minimization. And that's why I've worked to create these clear definitions. And I've broken it down into 3 different components. Emotional displacement happens when anything persistently replaces your partner in your priorities. This could be hunting, football, fantasy league, shopping, friends, work, really anything. And the reality is we all have moments where our priorities get out of whack. But here we're talking specifically about persistent issues. And then that emotional neglect is the intentional or unintentional withholding of support, care, and love. And really, sustained emotional neglect is a form of abandonment. And then that final component is that emotional affairs. And I define emotional affairs as a misdirected cultivation of intimacy with someone which competes with your primary attachment to your partner. So this may be cherishing, nurturing, or supporting somebody else. And it typically includes that emotional displacement and emotional neglect as well. Within a marriage, this is a violation of your marriage covenant and vows.
And so you graduated from Oxford when was that? Wow. That was so just well defined. That was so clinical. And wow, I'm kind of blown away. Like my brain doesn't work like that. Thank you for sharing those definitions with us. And I am curious if you have any kind of written document that I could include in show notes for listeners, because that was a lot of very intellectual information to take in. Do you have anything?
I do. I'd be happy to share a PDF I've got of that.
Wonderful. Thank you. I will put that in the show notes for the listeners. Gosh, as you were doing this research, what was that like for you, Jill?
It was
Putting
very
these,
validating.
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm. And did it help you heal further then?
Absolutely. I think it's kind of, I'm a homeschool mom too. I think it's kind of like when you get to teach somebody else, you
Mm-hmm.
learn it at a whole different level. So as I was working through these definitions, and we bounced these ideas off of each other, we bounced it off of other professionals. We had our pastor look through this. We got a lot of feedback as I was trying to make this very clear to a broad scope of people. But I also think it helped us hone and understand our own story and how this really worked, and being able to give me a voice and also deepen my husband's understanding of what we went through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think about when we went through our disclosure, the hardest part for me, and which was surprising for my husband, was the flirtatious emails and conversations he was having with coworkers. There's something incredibly intimate, and I love how you had used the some of those definitions. And Chris, I know that we're going to move on to the next question, but thank you for defining that. Sometimes just having a definition, it kind of files away some of the crazy making thoughts that are going through my head and helps me reconcile the experience that I'm having by giving it the words that you have. So thank you for your work that you're doing.
And I'm happy to hang out here in this space because my brain's snapping. Two things come to mind. One is I agree with you, Jen. It's the intentionality, the time spent, the thought processes, the brain power, the ruminating. I know when I'm excited to go on a vacation, I'm thinking about it. I'm researching it. I'm imagining it. I'm fantasizing about what is that experience going to be like? What's it going to look like? What do I need to pack? How am I going to plan this? Right. And I know that when someone's engaging in an emotional affair, even if they are not physically having sex, they're spending so much time. It's a drug. And that is what sets off, Jen, that you taught me, the dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin, and all of that in the brain, and it's a high, and it creates an alter ego. It totally does. So I just want to say yes and amen to what you said. I agree with that. It was in our story, it was the time spent in the pursuit that is the knife to the heart. Yeah.
In my story, pornography felt like I wasn't enough physically, but the emotional betrayal made me feel like I was not enough in every other way.
Yes.
It really hit my core. It really hit my identity.
When therapists are trying to work with a couple whose marriage is in danger, I've heard it said that a great therapist will say, no, you don't need to spend $10,000 on a luxury vacation to save your marriage. It's the little things you did when you were broke that matter. Leaving a note on the windshield, a thoughtful text message, bringing a cup of coffee. It's the little, getting the car washed or, filling the car. It's the little things that you did when you were courting each other, when you were broke, that can save a marriage, when it's falling apart. And that's, I think, the pain of an emotional affair is that, or the emotional betrayal is that those things are happening. The other piece I wanted to say is the importance of defining words. Brené Brown has her book out, Atlas of the Heart, and that's kind of what her whole book is about. And the example that she gave that has stuck with me is the difference between jealousy and envy. For example, if I say to you, "Oh my gosh, Jill, you get to go to Hawaii. I'm so jelly. No way. I'm so jealous. I want to go to Hawaii. Oh my, how you lucky you." That's not right. Because the definition of jealousy is the fear of losing one person to another person. What I'm doing is I'm envying you. I want what you have. I want to go too. And so words matter. So thank you, like Jen said, for these definitions. Okay, next question. So there's a common cultural narrative that emotional betrayal is somehow less than physical betrayal, and you touched on that in your story. Yet research suggests that this can be equally and at times more traumatic for women. So how do you help a woman find her voice and validate her pain when she's being told or even telling herself that her trauma isn't real because it wasn't physical? And so this is something that we experience when we leave groups. I've had tearful phone calls from women after a group where she's like, oh my gosh, so-and-so's husband was with prostitutes. They went to massage parlors. This has been going on for decades in their marriage. And this has just only been happening for 9 months with me. And yet I'm in so much pain and it doesn't feel fair.
I think this is such an important piece because as humans, I think we naturally tend to compare pain and often try to create some sort of pain hierarchy for our trauma. And so I just want to be very intentional with my words to be able to highlight the unique struggles of emotional betrayal without invalidating others' experiences. So for many, this aspect of betrayal is one of the most painful parts of their story. But acknowledging that doesn't diminish other people's pain. I think it's really important to remember we don't need to minimize anyone else's pain in order to validate our own. And we don't need to minimize our pain either at the same time. Like you're saying, I've seen that in groups as well, that people saying that my pain is less than doesn't really help either. So within the betrayal recovery community, we frequently talk about betrayal from problematic sexual behavior or sex addiction. Emotional betrayal may not on the surface seem to fit that category, but when we think about what betrayal trauma is, it fundamentally stems from discovering a spouse's intimate breach of trust. And that breach of trust may include many different aspects, including sexual, emotional, financial betrayal. From what I've seen, emotional betrayal can definitely be part of those compulsive sexual acting out behaviors as well. And regardless of how we classify the behavior, the trauma from intimate betrayal is very real. And both the data and the firsthand accounts I've heard, women consistently describe the pain from emotional betrayal as no less painful than physical betrayal. I think that research is really vital because it validates the pain that the wife's experiencing.
Yeah, I felt like it was clawing its way out of my body. The emotional betrayal is way more devastating than the physical. And I think it's hard for the betrayer to really wrap their mind around that. I hear it from so many women. I hear it from women an example might be he's looking up an ex-girlfriend, in some sort of, Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and starting a conversation. That is absolutely gutting because that leaves the road to possibilities to be absolutely endless, not just with that person, but with the betrayer's heart. But a lot of times people will see that sort of behavior as harmless. Like it's just a message. It's just a, hey, how you doing? Some people might even go as far as saying, oh, I just needed some closure, and the way we justify these types of betrayals, a lot of times they get minimized by the betrayer themselves because they simply just don't see it as a betrayal.
Right. I think one of the interesting things I found in the research also is that men and women process emotional betrayal differently. So women will rank it as high or higher than physical betrayal, while men rate sexual betrayal as the highest betrayal. So I think that adds to the challenge of being able to talk about this because we do come at it two different ways. It doesn't change that it's still betrayal.
Yeah.
But the way we view it is slightly different. And my husband and I are actually going to dig into this at Lit Path this summer together. And I am so excited for that opportunity to kind of look at it from both the men's perspective and the women's perspective.
This is a great transition to the next question. Okay, so with the rise of AI companions and all of this digital intimacy, some people say it's not a real person or it's not real betrayal. Again, there's this difference in a perception of betrayal. So how do we help a partner navigate that unique confusion and the gaslighting that comes with AI-based betrayal? It's we are just starting to touch in on this, and it's deeper and darker than any of us really truly want to know. But it is a reality, and we do need to have a discussion around it. What are your thoughts there?
I've been getting this question a lot lately. AI, emotional and sexual betrayal, is unfortunately something we're seeing a lot more now. I would say AI companionship isn't neutral. It's designed to draw you in and foster this intense artificial connection and counterfeit intimacy in a secret fantasy world. Bottom line, if this AI was a real human, would the things that you are saying and doing violate your shared values and vows? If so, is betrayal. And cultivating intimacy with an AI is a misdirected cultivation of intimacy. This counterfeit connection competes with your spouse, and that's the definition of an emotional affair. Integrity matters in every area of our lives, including our virtual worlds, which is why I think it's so vital to understand and establish clear boundaries around AI relationships.
Okay, does that count for ChatGPT? I mean, when you're talking AI relationships, I just had this whole not relationship. I'm going to back out of that statement. I've had this whole conversation with ChatGPT around my father's aging. And boy, you hear, oh, you're doing such a good job, Jen. Good luck with your dad. I went back into ChatGPT to look up something. I use it more as like a Google now than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, hey, the last time we talked, you were mentioning your father. How is he doing? I'm like, are you kidding?
Oh my
Look at
goodness.
the bait. Look at the bait. And so we have to be on guard at the bait that we're taking. It's not as innocent. And I can engage with AI in a way that is helpful for, just navigating the world that we're in today. But boy, you have to be on guard for the bait that's being dangled, the little hooks that are out there, because if we're not, we can get sucked in really easy. And we can't be as so naive to think that we won't get pulled into some sort of trap, any of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even those of us that are working through betrayal. You've heard of people going to AI for counseling and the directions that some of those AI-based platforms have taken people in regards to betrayal. This is a piece of why being with real people, having real conversations, and working through the processes are so important with real live people. But regardless if you're on the betrayed side or on the betrayal side, all of us have to be aware of the hooks that are out there to pull us away from real intimacy with real people, right?
Yeah, real people who are directed by the Holy Spirit. AI might give good advice, but there's no Holy Spirit discernment involved in that. I saw something on Instagram. There's a preacher guy I follow, and he showed a clip of an AI generated woman saying, I can be your girlfriend. I can do anything you want, anything that you can imagine. I can do that for you. And she's cute as a button, this AI thing. And I'm thinking, even a real life affair partner is going to fail, is going to disappoint, is going to let you down. And AI is not going to do that. I think this is incredibly dangerous.
Yes.
Incredibly dangerous in so many venues, but especially in this one. That's a drug not even an affair partner can compete with.
Yep.
Whew. I don't even know where to go with that one. But I kind of want to backtrack to, because I got a little righteous indignation, flare, anger in me, Jill, when you said that men and women see emotional affairs differently. And I know you said you and your husband are going to dive into this. And I love that you're going to be at LitPath. And listeners, if you're interested in this conference, it's litpath.com, and it's LIT, right?
Yes.
Litpath.com. Go find out about it. It's in Tennessee, I think, right?
It is just outside of Nashville.
And it's happening this June. So it is a big deal. And I don't know if there's a virtual pass, but anyway, check that out. It happens annually. But let's talk a little bit more, ladies, about why men see this as less than and women don't. What is that about?
I think that it goes back to honestly how we're created. Women are wired to assess, to see the emotional threats. They want that connection, that security through our relationships, and they can pick up on the nuances and the subtleties that maybe men aren't as quick to see.
Mm. And for maybe I'm imagining that a man is thinking, well, if it culminates in a physical interaction, then that's betrayal. That's an affair. That's crossing over the line. But prior to that, it's just fun and games, innocent flirting, I guess. I don't know. Jen, do you have any thoughts on this?
Oh, Chris, I have tons of thoughts on this.
Please share them with us.
Well,
Here's
it
the
might
class.
take us a whole different direction, so I want to be really careful to stay, the direction we're going. But I think it touches back on that emotional awareness. When we're not hypervigilant in all the right ways that God intended us to be hypervigilant, we can be susceptible to not having a full understanding as to the impact that our emotions have. And men in general, not all men, but men in general, their role is very different than our roles, and so their capacity for
Compartmentalizing or
yeah, well, not just that, but just their emotional capacity, their ability to see the emotional risks aren't there. And if there is a sex addiction component, if there is a pornography component to this, I cannot remember the name of the chemical that triggers protection, but there is one out there. I can't think of it right now. But that protective mechanism, that protective instinct starts to become diminished. So when you add a decreased protective mechanism along with a decrease of emotional risk, and you combine that with emotional protection, when those things start to become decreased, now we're on a path to some serious destruction emotionally, relationally, certainly. So yes, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but like I said, it could go a whole nother direction. So maybe Jill, we can come back for another podcast on this. But yeah, we're at big risk for this. And this is why being attuned to God, ourselves, and others is so incredibly important for the health, for our physical, emotional, and relational health. We have the attunement and the capacity to navigate difficult things is so incredibly important, because we will naturally go to the thing that's easiest. And the more we do that, the less capacity we have to be engaged in real life. So that was a very long-winded answer for a very complicated question.
Yeah,
and I don't think I really even answered it, but here we are. Is everyone with me here? Are we on the same page?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is a good conversation to have, and we're just scratching the surface, and I don't know that we have answers, but I'll look forward to hearing what you and your husband dig up, Jill. It's just, when we're working with groups, that unfairness button gets pushed, and that kind of got pushed with me when you brought that up, Jill, and it's okay. Like it's a opportunity to dig in and see what's under there. But yeah, the men don't see it the same way or weigh it the same as women do. And I will say, though, that men I see pursuing healing, understanding, and have that, what is it? 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 10 and 11 goes over what true repentance looks like. Mm-hmm. And men, where I see those fruits coming out, they weigh it the same. In that healing process, they get it. And we align then. And then, like you said, Jen, and you talked about that protective hormone or chemical in the brain in the episode with Daryl Brazel, the secret sexual basement. It was such a great part of the conversation. But that comes back. And that man, like Daryl said, that he was created to be, rises up. And then there's just absolutely zero tolerance for anything that would betray his wife or take his attention away from his wife. So
I think you bring up a really good point there, Chris. And I think that awareness piece changes things. Yes. Once you see this and you understand it, it changes. your perceptions.
I even say heals them. Yeah.
Mhm.
You said early on, you talked about identity. And I think that so many of our men in this day and age have a mistaken identity or a lack of identity. They don't get what their role is as a man, faith-based or not. They just don't understand what it is that they're here to do. And it's a beautiful thing to watch a man step in to that God-given role with all of his tools, all of his, quote unquote weapons, that protection, what his strength is for, actually, what sacrificial love looks like, all of those things. It is amazing. It's just amazing, isn't it? It's such a sight to behold. And what a blessing to receive it too and experience it. Okay. So as a Christian, Jill, you view marriage as a reflection of Christ in the church, as do Jen and I. How can biblical language around covenant, because we are in a covenant relationship when we enter into a marriage, it is not a contract. So how can biblical language around covenant and vows help a betrayed partner move from confusion into truth and clarity instead?
Yeah. I think we go back to the foundations of truth. And as a Christian, I believe the Bible makes it very clear that God's call to faithfulness within marriage isn't only speaking to outward physical fidelity. So, using that clear and concise biblical language is a vital tool for describing how your spouse has violated their vows. We know that we're called to love the Lord God with all our hearts and our souls and our minds. Since human marriage is meant to be a reflection of that marriage with Christ and his bride, aren't we called to love our spouses with our hearts, minds, and souls as well? We're meant to live in such a way to reflect and glorify that beautiful union of Christ and the church. And when we view marriage through that lens, we can see that betrayal is a catastrophic emotional, physical, and spiritual wound inflicted by a broken covenant. While actual wedding vows vary, most include a variation of that promise to love, honor, and cherish so long as you both shall live. And emotional betrayal directly violates that vow. By using that biblical framework, a betrayed partner can find clarity. Her husband's behavior has failed to love, honor, and cherish her. And in doing so, he's broken his sacred vow, not only to her, but also to God.
You know, I've heard so many people say, I am never doing this again. Like, if this doesn't work out, okay, it's me. I've said it. If this doesn't work out, I'm never doing it again. Never, 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 never. I've had 2 marriages now where I've dealt with this. And as you're talking right now, Jill, I see the man who is intimately close with God. And I got to think, I have a son who's a pastor, and I see his intimate love with the Lord. Like, I got to thinking for a second there, man, for those of you who aren't married, or maybe you're divorced and you're just kind of in this new season of life, or for those of us that are married, and I'm thinking, even as I'm watching my husband now, Chris, and I just sent you a Marco Polo, yesterday or the day before, and like my husband was just saying, as his relationship with Christ increases, the desire for these other things is just decreasing so much. And that is what we're looking for. So whether you're single, whether you're looking to maybe date again after divorce, or even in your own marriage, what we're looking for is a man who can hold intimacy with Christ in those profound ways.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about a covenant, has a man, in this case, a partner, whatever, you can say a man, I don't know who's listening to the podcast today, but do they have an intimate, profound relationship with Christ? Because we're going to enter into a covenant with this person. And I certainly didn't know at 19, and then again at 33. I don't know when I got married the second time. It's been a long time. But if I had realized the importance of being with a man who understands intimacy with Christ, that would have radically changed some of my decision making. Now, I happen to be with someone, Dan and I have been in the healing process for, I don't know, feels like ever. But I am now watching this take place as he continues to build that tenacity towards healing. I'm now watching intimacy radically change his life. And I'm encouraged that he understands, he'll know on a whole different level what a covenant means because of the covenant he has with Christ, not just with me, but what he has with Christ. So
I've thought about your Marco multiple times since 3 days ago when you sent it, and you used the word crave. You said that Dan no longer craved the things that he used to. He's now craving time and experience and presence with God.
right.
And when you said that word craved, or when Dan shared that with you, that hit.
I think
I get that.
Yeah, I think a man's emotional capacity is directly in alignment with his emotional intimacy with God.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad to be on this journey for the most part. But at the same time, there's a very solid truth in that his availability to me emotionally is in direct alignment with his emotional and intimate relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
So Jill, betrayal often triggers this profound crisis of faith, right? Where everything a person once believed to be true feels completely upside down. For many of us, that can come in the beginning, and then for some of us, it kind of comes even later in the process. As we start to wrap up this conversation today, how would you encourage someone who's listening really in the middle of that devastation right now?
When you are in the middle of this devastation, it is so common to struggle with what is actually true, including those values you once thought were unquestionable. If that's where you're at in this messy middle, I want you to hear this clearly. Your pain is legitimate. It is valid. Infidelity in all its forms is a violation of your sacred marriage vows. You're not crazy for feeling this deeply. You are responding to a broken covenant. And even more importantly, I want you to hear God cares about that pain because you matter to him. My hope is that by utilizing these definitions, you can begin to name and articulate your pain, because once you can name it, you can begin to move through it. And just remember, whether or not your husband chooses the path of recovery, you can heal.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jill.
It's so true. As a matter of fact, it's important that you understand that our health, our wellness, our healing is not dependent upon the status of our marriage or his healing.
Mm-hmm.
So good, Jill. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You know, as we've been talking throughout this whole episode, Jen, one of the first things, because Jill, fun fact, Jen and I have been friends for over 25 years now, and she was my 911 call on my D-Day. And she'd walked a bit of this path before I started. And so one of the things that you shared when I was in your group was that picture of the two dogs, the How Deep is the Mud picture. Have you seen that, Jill? Okay. You know, you might want to snag it off of the internet and use it for your talk, but it's a Chihuahua and a Labrador Retriever. And they've been playing in the mud, and the mud is up to the Labrador's knees, but on the Chihuahua, it's up to its chin. And so how deep is the mud? It says it depends on who you ask. We bring in different, well, it doesn't matter what kind of baggage we bring in, what our resilience level is. Stepping outside of that marriage covenant is what matters. And Jen, another thing I was thinking about as we were talking is you one time were really on a research drive regarding intent versus motivation. Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit about that real quick as we wrap up? Because it's that intent piece. And I've used that a lot of times with people, just saying it's less about what actually happened and more about the intent.
Well, yeah. I mean, the actions that my husband has taken, or even just in a relationship with anyone, we can be motivated in quotes to change, but the intentionality behind it matters, whether for good or for bad. Our motives what motivates us to change versus what the intention is are very, very different. And the problem is, I think, and maybe I'm just kind of cluing into something here that's maybe on my heart that I'm just sort of evolving as we speak, is the awareness of what the motivation is versus the intent. Let me give an example. Something was happening in my family. I sort of stepped in to help. The motivation would look pure and good and right. The intent, as it came down to it, was I did not want to feel the uncomfortable feelings of watching that person suffer. So the motivation looks great on the outside, right? Being super helpful. On the inside, the intent was to ease my own discomfort because I had not built capacity for the situation. So, but without working on our capacity, we may not understand the motivations or our intentions without doing the work of understanding what's driving the behavior. So thoughts and beliefs create emotions that drive behavior. So again, the motivation might seem pure on the outside, but it's the intention of the heart. God talks about that, doesn't he? The intention of the heart is really what's going to bring lasting change, lasting capacity, lasting healing.
If my intent is to say a kind word to the UPS driver who just delivered 7 boxes to my house, then that's wonderful. But if my intent is to flirt because I think he's cute, that's a violation of my marriage covenant. That's sin. And that's a slippery slope. These things matter. Jill, do you have anything you want to say as we wrap up? This has been such a great conversation, and I appreciate the space to just kind of noodle some things out in real time with you.
I really enjoyed getting to chat with you both today, and I just appreciate the time and being able to talk about this difficult topic. There's so many nuances to it, and like we talked several points, like we could do a whole nother podcast on just one piece of this because it is so complex, but I appreciate just being able to talk through that together.
Well, we are grateful that you are using the gifts that God gave you to give us language to address this issue and to help people heal, men and women. So thank you, Jill, for the work that you're doing. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a bit as well. And we look forward to knowing you more and maybe having you back someday. And God bless you as you go to Lit Path.
Thank you, Jill.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Betrayal Recovery Transformation Podcast. We hope you found today's discussion helpful and empowering. For more information, please be sure to check the show notes. Until next time, be kind to yourself and keep pursuing healing. A ministry supported by Pure Life Alliance.